My name is Max Bingaman, and I'm chairman of the board of Bingaman and Son Lumber. As I've aged, I've gradually turned a lot of my responsibilities over to my son Chris, who is now the president of the company. But I'm married and I have 5 children, 4 girls and a boy. Chris is the only boy in our family, and I have a wonderful wife. Her name is Martha. No man ever had a better wife than I have. She is a gem. When I graduated from high school in 1953, and there was a kitchen cabinet company here in Kramer called Wood Mode, or at that time it was Wood Metal. They've changed the name to Wood Mode a few years ago. But anyhow, my dad was in the lumber business in a very small way. He had just a small truck, and he bought lumber from the sawmills and had a few customers in Williamsport area that he delivered to. I said to my dad, I'd like the lumber business. I enjoy working with lumber. And anyhow, in 1960, I got a customer in Dover, New Jersey called Reliance Picture Frame Company. And they bought kiln-dried lumber from us, and Wood Mode kiln-dried the lumber for us. My dad said, you know, if Reliance Picture Frame would buy more lumber from us, there's a good possibility maybe we could make it go together. So I called the president of Reliance Picture Frame Company. This was in Dover, New Jersey, and I asked him. I said, if you would buy more lumber from us, I would probably quit working at this cabinet company and go into business full time. He said, Mr. Bingaman, your lumber's been excellent. Sure, we'll buy more lumber from you. So I came home and I was just elated. However, I gave Wood Mode my resignation, and I was foreman of a glue department at that time, and I said I will work here for 4 weeks, teaching somebody else to do what I'm doing. And so I gave him a notice that I would be quitting the end of June. And about a week before I quit, my dad came into the plant one day and had an envelope, and he handed me the envelope, and I could tell he was upset. And I saw it was from Reliance Picture Frame. Anyhow, I opened up the envelope and looked at it, and it said, please hold up all lumber shipments till October. Well, this was June, you know, so July, August, September. He just said to me, you better just go and tell the superintendent here that you're not quitting. He said, I just don't think we can make it go if we don't have their business. Anyhow, I said, Daddy, I feel the Lord is leading me in the lumber business, and I'm going to quit. And we're going to trust the Lord. If I don't make it, I'm sure my reputation here is good enough that I can come back and get a job here again. So I quit. I can't tell you what, without getting a little emotional, how the Lord led me to different places, and I picked up customers, and our business began to grow and grow. And finally, in 1968, we incorporated. We had 7 years of tough going. Every month we had that payment to make. My wife kept the books, and she came to me from time to time and said, Max, we have this payment. We don't have the money. But by the grace of God, something always took place that when we had to have it, we had it. And so for 7 years we struggled, but we got through it. And we're still going today, and we're grateful for that. And you know, I honestly don't know what interested me in the lumber business, but I went to inspection school about a year or 2 after I quit working with Mode. It's always intrigued me that you can take a board off the same log, but you'll never find 2 boards that are exactly alike. And that's the way lumber is. Every board has a different personality, and it just always intrigued me. And I inspected lumber probably for 10 years after even after my dad passed away. I had a tractor and trailer and left every morning and went most of the time out into Everett, Pennsylvania, Cumberland, Maryland, and had mills there that I bought lumber from. And I'd go there every morning and be there, try to be there by 7 o'clock in the morning and inspect the lumber and come home and unload that evening and leave the next morning again. But eventually, my brother-in-law, we hired him, and he would put lumber on strips by hand. And when I think of, oh my goodness, the way we used to do things and the way we do things now, it's incredible. Anyhow, I met this man who used about 5 million feet of low-grade oak every year, and things and the way we do things now, it's incredible.
Well, that was kind of my next question anyway. So, yeah, give me a little bit more detail about, like just what amazes you about from where you started to where you are now, sitting in this chair today.
Well, I have deep religious convictions, and all I can say is God just blessed me. I was led to places. I remember going to a place to sell them low-grade oak, and at that time, back in the 60s and the 70s, any house that was built, they put carpet down. Hardly nobody put flooring, hardwood flooring down, and so the flooring industry went to pot, and all these mills had two common oak that they were trying to move and just couldn't sell it. Anyhow, I met this man who used about 5 million feet of low-grade oak every year, and at that time he was buying kiln-dried, and he told me, he said, I'm putting in dry kilns. He said, I want you to, we're going to start this in the next month or two, but he said, in about 6 months, I want you to bring a little lumber here. I want to see what it looks like. So in about 6 months, he called me, and by that time he had a lumber stacker, and he had his kilns were under construction. And anyhow, I took this load of lumber to him, and we unloaded it there at his plant. And he and his son-in-law came out and picked through this lumber, and he looked at me and he said, "Is this the quality of lumber you would ship me?" I said, "Mr. Rada, it's two common oak, and that's what you're buying." He said, "How much lumber can you furnish me a year? Could you furnish me with 5 million feet a year?" I said, "I would sure love to give it a shot." Anyhow, that all transpired, and we furnished his company for I don't know how many years, for about 5 million feet of lumber. I bought lumber all over the state of Pennsylvania. I bought lumber out of West Virginia. He was a wonderful customer, and that was a great asset in the growth of our company, because people who didn't know anything about Bingaman and Son lumber before they learned that we were in the lumber business, and so when I needed something better, when I needed some good red oak, maybe to go to Wood-Mode or to some of our other customers, I could go to them and buy that as well. So that was a great blessing to us.
Yeah.
And it was a great step in the growth of our company.
When you talk about kiln-dry wood, is there a difference now compared to whenever it was dried then? Like, was it a longer process? Is there any big modern changes that have?
Well, at that time, actually, in 1969, when my dad passed away, we weren't even here in this lumber yard. Our lumber yard was up where Wood-Mode's parking lot is now, and then we bought 20 acres here, and Wood-Mode said, we want you to sell us 10 acres. So they bought 10 acres from us to where their dry kilns are now, and we bought 10 acres here. Well, we bought a lot more since that, and moved over to the other side of the road. And anyhow, it was in 1970 when I put my first dry kiln. Up until that time, Wood Mode dried everything for me. And then the man who ran the dry kilns, who was a heck of a nice man, came to me and he said, Max, I'm telling you, we are getting busier here, and I don't think that we're going to be able to dry lumber for you anymore. So I did something my dad would never do. I borrowed money and put up a #1 dry kiln over here. And that was the start of our kiln drying process. And then in 72, I believe it was, there was a company in Philadelphia that went bankrupt, and they had dry kilns to sell and a stacker to sell. Anyhow, I went down there and looked at these kilns. And it would be a chore to tear them out and rebuild them here. But I got in touch with Irvington Moore Dry Kiln Company and a fellow by the name of Harry Nevison. I got in touch with me then, and he said, I asked him, I said, the kilns that are down there are not package kilns, but I said, we'd like to turn them into package kilns. Can we do that? He said, very definitely. You just go ahead and buy those kilns and I'll come up and show you what to do. So, and that was a wonderful blessing that he granted me. He came here, showed me what to do, how to make package kilns out of those kilns that we bought. And so we built three other kilns. And then I got acquainted with a gentleman by the name of Norman Hahn, who was the owner of Conestoga Wood Products. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of Conestoga Wood Products, but they make kitchen cabinet parts. And they have a very large company in East Earl, Pennsylvania. And when I started selling him lumber, we only sold him a load maybe every 2 months or something like that. But in I would say probably 1976 or somewhere in there, he added a piece to his plant and began to grow, and called me to see if I had any red oak, kiln dried red oak, and which we had, and we began just a friendship, but we worked together. I tried to get whatever he needed, and we just grew together. And today there were times in the past that we would ship them 8 trailer loads of lumber a week. And now they have a plant in Beavertown here, which I helped them get. And anyhow, they're still wonderful customers. Mr. Hahn has passed away, but his son one of his sons is taking over the company, and we just have a wonderful relationship together. And they depend on us to supply them with the lumber they need.
It's interesting to talk about relationships. I went to a presentation once by an older gentleman in our town where I grew up, but he said one of the things he missed the most about the way things changed was the neighboring. But I guess my question to you then is, do you still find those kinds of relationships in the lumber business now that you did back then, and is that still helping build your company?
I do find that not quite as prevalent as it was back years ago, but yes, I have met some of the most wonderful people in the lumber business, and we have a lot of sawmills that furnish us almost everything they saw, and they're wonderful suppliers, and we do everything we can to try to take care of them in thick and thin. I said there's one time when we need you, but there are times when you need us. So I've always tried to use the example of gears meshing together. I said if you have gears that mesh together, you can move a big load. But if the gears are stripped, nobody's going anywhere. So I said, that sawmill, you sawmill folks, are essential to us, and I want to do everything I can to take care of you. And the same way with our customers. We go out of our way to do what our customers want done. I feel there's a great future in this industry. You know, one of the things about Pennsylvania, we have some of the most productive forests of any state in the United States. And we have species here that a lot of other states don't have. For instance, cherry. The northwestern part of our state has beautiful cherry. Now there's cherry in West Virginia, and there's cherry in some other parts of our United States, but the quality of that cherry is superb to any other cherry in the world. And our forest, Pennsylvania has been very conscientious of forest management, and so our forests, they claim, are growing much faster than we're harvesting. So I think that somebody that wants to get into this business is certainly stepping into some. You know, a lot of people think, oh, we're going to run out of trees. Well, if our forests are managed properly, you know, we can go in and cut down a tree today, and 30, 40 years from now, we can go and cut a tree down in that same area again. And that's the way they're managing our forests today. So I think there's potential for a young person that wants to get into this business to be successful. I think we need to start in the high school. You know, if some of our leaders in this business would be able to get into the high school and present opportunities that the lumber business affords us, we might be able to get some young people come out of high school and enter into places like Wood Mode. You know, where they're looking for people all the time. We're looking for people. We'd hire probably 10 people here if we could. Right now we just can't hire anybody. But anyhow, I think that would probably be the way to start, to get young people interested in a profession in this business. Be honest. Don't try to manipulate and do things that are not honest. I know back years ago there were people in this business who would cheat on the grade of lumber that they were shipping to people, or they'd cheat on the footage. I have said many times, if we have 12 or 13 trucks leaving here every day going somewhere with load lumber, if we would just add 20 feet of additional footage on each one of those trucks, so that'd be what, 20 feet, that'd be 260 feet. Well, at something that's costing $1,500 a thousand, and multiply that times 260, or 300 times 1,500, that'd be $45 a day that we could make, and nobody even know it. You know, I mean, and there are people who don't have convictions that do those kind of things. I've had one of my customers tell me, you know, every load of lumber we get from so-and-so, we're always off 100, 200 feet that we're short. Well, I think that probably was the person who was selling that lumber was doing that intentionally. And that is just something that I just think is something that our future generation has to learn to operate in a business, in an honest business manner. I've had some young men come into my office here and inquire, hey, we're thinking about going into business, and we just want to ask you, what would you recommend? And the first thing I always ask them, are you willing to work 80 or 90 hours a week? They look at me, what do you mean? I said, if you're going to go in business and you think you're going to work 40 hours a week, especially when you're first starting a business, forget it. You'll never make it. When I first went into business with my dad, I worked every Saturday. A lot of times I left on a Friday night and went into Dover, New Jersey with a load of lumber and went up into northern Pennsylvania or southern New York and picked up a load of lumber and came home. So, I mean, there's times I know that I worked 80, 90 hours a week. I think the thing that I like best is the wonderful association that I've had with some wonderful people. And the association I've had here with my own employees, just wonderful people. That is very gratifying to me, just to have a relationship with your customers and with your suppliers and with your employees. That is extra special. Well, we shipped all over Europe. We shipped to South America. Of course, we shipped to Canada and all over the United States. We ship a lot of lumber to the West Coast. We have an outstanding customer in Texas, Kansas, Florida. We have a customer in Florida that has just bought a tremendous amount of lumber from us, and I've been to Europe. I've been almost all over in Europe, and I think our potential there. Most of these countries don't have hardwood. We have an agent in Spain, and I've traveled all over Spain with him. And you know what? I can't honestly say that I saw a tree that I would harvest. I mean, I saw trees, but they were scrubs. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of these countries don't have the availability of the forest products that we have here. And so if they want to have something made out of hardwood, they're going to have to come here to get it. So I think that's just another attribute of how important our forests are, not only to our country but to the world. So we want to do everything we can to make sure that we have good forestry practices, so that our timber keeps renewing itself. Well, I went to the school of hard knocks. I learned a lot of things just by doing. My son took a year of business in college, and I can just tell he has an insight into things that I don't have and didn't have, and had to learn. If I did acquire it, I just think probably if you're going to go in business, 1 year of business education would certainly be a help. But one of the things that I learned a lot from was going to an inspection school, and I learned to inspect lumber. When I say inspect lumber, every board has a category it falls into. It's either an FAS, a select, or a 1 common, 2 common, or 3 common. So you have to learn the cuttings as you're grading that lumber, whether it has the cuttings to make an FAS or a select or 1. Anyhow, that was a great experience for me, and I learned a tremendous. We had just a great. He was an elderly gentleman, retired, but he went around teaching classes, and I took a short course class. Penn State was 2 weeks long, and that man just taught me so much. His name was Nicely. I will never forget that. Just an old lumberman, but he just had a lot of wisdom. Well, we started here, and this is our major organization. And I bought a lot of lumber from a company out in Clarendon, from a gentleman by the name of Bruce Dunn. And Bruce was a wonderful supplier, and had dry kilns there. And anyhow, one day he called me and he said, would it be all right if I'd like to talk to you. Would it be all right if I'd come down? I said, Bruce, you're welcome here anytime. So anyhow, he came, he sat in one of the chairs there, and we talked for a while, and then he said, well, I'll tell you why I'm here. He had two sons. The one son was a drug addict and actually died from an overdose. And the other son was involved in the business with him. And he said, Max, he said, my son is not really interested in the lumber business. He's an accountant. That's what he'd like to do. And he said, so I don't have anybody that would take over this business. And he said, I know how you feel about the people who furnish you with lumber. And I have a fellow by the name of Tuffy Lyons that I want to have, whoever buys my company, I want them to take care of Tuffy Lyons, who is a supplier of his. And he said, I know your feelings about your suppliers. So he said, I want to sell the business, and really I'd like to sell it to you. I said, Bruce, boy, at this time, I'm up to here. I don't know if I can handle anything else. He said, it doesn't have to be right now. He said, this was in about this time of year. He said, wait till the fall and see if things change. Well, in the fall, things were, I was in better shape. I had some people that took over some responsibilities that I had. And I said, do you know what you want for the place? No, he said, I've been thinking about it, I'm not sure. Anyhow, we finally came up with a amount, and we ended up buying that company. And it had some employees. Now, we have hired, at that time, I think he had 4 or 5 employees. We have about 25 people working there now. And then our first sawmill that we bought was Pine Creek Lumber. And actually, this was after my dad passed away. This man who owned that, his name was Phil Fox, came to me, and he furnished us with a lot of great lumber. It was a good mill. And he said, Max, I have a tract of timber, it has beautiful timber on, and he said, I'd like to buy it, but I don't have enough money. Is there any way that you could give me, I remember, I think it was $30,000 or $40,000, and I did. I got the money and gave it to him, and he bought that tract of timber. And before he even started on it, he had a heart attack. And now this was back quite a few years ago. He was one of the few people who went through open heart surgery at that time, but he did. He went through open heart surgery, and he survived. But they told him he would never be able to run a sawmill. So he called me and asked if I'd come up and we could talk. So I went up, and he said, Max, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to pay you back. He said, I've been thinking about this. How about if you give me so much more, I'll just sell you the whole sawmill. So that was the first sawmill we bought. Then the St. Mary's, the 2 brothers owned that, Tom and Bob, and of course Amy was involved in that. Our buyer went in there different times, and we just had a hard time buying any lumber from them. And finally, my buyer said, finally broke down the wall. Bob's going to sell us a load of lumber. So I bought our first load of lumber from him. Well, then things went along. We bought more and more. And one day that our lumber buyer was in there, he said to him, he said, we ought to just sell this mill to Bingaman. I'd like to get out of this, not have all this responsibility. Every time we want to do something, I got to go to the bank. And anyhow, I had no interest in buying a sawmill, but we got together and talked, and we ended up buying St. Mary's Lumber. And of course, now we moved it. It's on in a brand new mill. We have a beautiful operation there. But then the next mill we bought was WBL, which was owned by the Winterines, and they went bankrupt. And we ended up buying the assets and kept that mill going. So basically, all four of those places had employees there. Now we've added some, but I'm happy with all four of those organizations. I have a lot of wonderful employees here in this organization. We have a tremendous group of people working here, for which I am extremely grateful. Good employees are hard to find, and I always want our employees to know that you are the most vital part of this organization. We have a lot of trucks, we have a lot of kilns, a lot of lumber, but that doesn't mean a hill of beans without wonderful employees to do the work. So I always want our employees to know that they're appreciated, and I'm grateful for them.